Fearless, uncompromising, and extremely cruel. These are the words that can be used to describe Griselda Blanco, the drug lord who once raged across America. Known as the Old Mother in the Underworld, this boss is also notorious for killing her husband, so she is also nicknamed Black Widow. At the time when Griselda made waves, drug lord Pablo Escobar was just a small fry. Griselda Blanco, born in 1943, Colombian nationality, is known as Queen of Drugs. Griselda Blanco, the boss, is one of the 10 richest criminals in world history, with assets of up to $620 million. This woman is also suspected of being the mastermind of about 250 murders, settlements between notorious gangs. But with the cunning of the old fox, the police lacked evidence to convict her. Griselda Blanco was born in 1943 in Cartagena, Colombia. At the age of 3, she and her mother and Lucia Restrepo moved to Medellin to live. Medellin is one of the paradises of drugs and prostitution in Colombia. As a child, Griselda grew up in poverty, and her life of crime began early. Griselda's childhood was associated with criminal activities. At the age of 11, Griselda was accused of kidnapping and killing a child near where she lived. At the age of 13, she became a professional pickpocket. Soon, being exploited at home, Griselda went on the run, left the city of Cartagena, and sold sex to make a living on the streets of Medellin. Griselda officially had a turning point in her life after meeting and marrying Carlos Trujillo, an illegal immigrant trafficker in the United States. Although the couple had 3 sons, their marriage ended in a terrible way. Trujillo died in 1970 of cirrhosis, Griselda's first short-lived husband. But rumors circulated that Griselda herself killed her husband so she could remarry again. Her second husband was Alberto Bravo, who introduced Griselda to drugs. In the early 1970s, the couple moved to Queens, New York, where their business flourished. The couple established a direct drug trafficking route from Colombia to the United States, which robbed the Italian mafia of their livelihood. Her gang operated throughout the United States in the 1970s and 1980s, earning about $8 million a day from drug trafficking. In the US, she actively befriended key figures in the criminal network and the leaders of the mafia gangs here. In late 1970, Griselda's relationship with the Miami gangs became tense. The gangs wanted to compete with her for territory. German Jimenez was the leader of a notorious drug trafficking gang in Miami. One day, German and his bodyguard were walking into a bar when a motorcycle assassin suddenly appeared and shot German dead. According to some sources, Griselda killed German because he played dirty with her in a power struggle in Miami. The incident became famous in the Miami underworld, helping her consolidate her position and voice. Griselda took over the entire drug business here. She became famous in the drug trafficking world for using motorcycle assassination methods. The underworld called it the Miami Drug War and called her the Old Mother. Griselda was considered the mother of the unique method of hiding drugs in underwear. This boss recruited a series of young girls to transport white goods. She designed places to hide drugs in the underwear of those young girls, and these ferries calmly transported drugs into the United States by air, with the skyrocketing expansion and development of the drug trade. At the same time, Alberto restructured the drug supply in the drug export line in Colombia, while Griselda focused on expanding the drug empire in New York. But in 1975, everything collapsed. Blanco and Bravo were defeated by a raid by the New York police and the anti-drug agency in an operation called Banshee. But realizing the danger, Griselda quickly fled to Colombia. And here, Alberto Bravo, Griselda's second, short-lived husband, lost his life. According to rumors in the underworld, after discovering that millions of dollars had been stolen, Griselda and Alberto had a conflict. The evil woman pulled out a pistol hidden inside her ostrich leather boots and shot Bravo in the face. Before dying, Alberto also managed to give his wife a bullet in the stomach, leaving a scar on Griselda's body that would last forever. There are also some rumors that drug lord Pablo Escobar himself murdered Alberto. After the death of her second husband, Griselda was officially nicknamed Black Widow, roughly translated, Griselda Blanco. But what's more important to this boss is that she now has complete control over her drug empire. Griselda is a young drug lord with beauty and power. So Griselda's love life is also very fiery. With her gangster nature, the boss's passionate love affairs and debauchery took place between bloody purges in business deals and drug trafficking. After the failure of Operation Banshee, Griselda continued to smuggle drugs into the United States while she ran all the business in Colombia. In 1976, Griselda even invested in a yacht named Gloria. This yacht was later sent by the Colombian government to participate in a race held in New York Harbor to celebrate the 200th anniversary of the founding of the United States of America. According to the accusation, taking advantage of the name of being sent to participate in the race, this yacht smuggled 13 pounds, about 6 kilograms, of drugs into the United States. In 1978, Griselda remarried to her third husband, a bank robber named Dario Sepulveda. That same year, her fourth son was born, named Michael Corleone. This beloved child was named by the boss after the character in the famous mafia movie, The Godfather. And from there, the boss set her sights on Miami, where she became famous as the Queen of Drugs. In Miami, Griselda lived a lavish life. Houses, expensive cars, private planes, this boss had it all. Griselda turned her life into a queen's, buying a villa on Miami Beach, buying expensive diamonds from the First Lady of Argentina, Eva Perón. She even proudly customized for herself a MAC-10 pistol made of emeralds and gold. This boss's fortune at that time was worth hundreds of millions of dollars, which was unimaginable for someone who grew up in a poor neighborhood in Colombia. Griselda organized regular parties for drug dealers in the underworld. Prostitutes were brought in to serve the guests. According to some sources, this boss also held prostitutes at gunpoint and forced them to have group sex with her and other men. Also from these debauchery, the boss began to indulge in drug addiction. Her favorite product was bazooka, a type of raw drug. The boss's use of hard drugs made her increasingly paranoid. But from there, this boss gradually took over the underworld in Miami, where competition between different factions became increasingly tense, including her Medellin cartel. Soon, conflicts broke out. From 1979 to 1984, South Florida became a war zone. The first shots were fired on July 11, 1979. Several assassins sent by Griselda to assassinate a drug lord who confronted her at the Crown Liquor Store in the Dadeland Mall. The assassins drove into the mall in an armored delivery truck and proceeded to kill everyone inside, including liquor store employees, throughout the mall, fortunately only sustaining injuries. We called it the tank because it was covered in quarter-inch steel with holes drilled in it so that the guns could be fired from the inside out, recalls former detective Raul Diaz. After the tank was seized by the police, the cartel leader came up with a more mobile and effective method of assassination, which was the use of motorcycles. She pioneered this trick in her assassinations on the streets of Medellin. Griselda's most trusted assassin was Jorge Ayala. Ayala later recounted that when the boss ordered someone to be killed, it meant that everyone around the target would be killed. She didn't care who those people were, innocent bystanders, women or children. Griselda Blanco was extremely cruel. If someone didn't pay her on time, their whole family would be killed. If she didn't want to pay or defaulted on someone's debt, their whole family would also be killed. Griselda Blanco didn't allow anyone to look down on her. Anyone who dared to stroke the tiger's whiskers would have to pay the price. Ayala was a man who was willing to kill for the boss, but he also had a principle of not harming children. During a purge, Ayala herself stopped her bloodthirsty teammates from killing the children of two drug dealers they had just killed. However, Ayala accidentally broke her rule in one case. The victim was the youngest child on her list of victims. Griselda sent Ayala to take care of one of her former assassins, Jesus Castro. Unfortunately, Castro was carrying her 2-year-old son Johnny in the car at the time, and the unfortunate child was accidentally shot twice during the purge. Griselda also committed some of the murders herself. She nicknamed herself La Compasiva, meaning the compassionate one, after accepting a victim's desperate plea to shoot him instead of slashing him with a knife. Griselda was said to be a maniacal and brutal killer who could kill anyone on a whim. Those unlucky enough to be her targets were killed, even children as young as 4 years old. During her life of crime, Griselda is said to have ordered the murder of 250 people. Then, in late 1983, Griselda's third husband committed suicide by going against her wishes. Sepulveda smuggled their son, Michael Corleone, back to Colombia. But he could not escape Griselda. She had her men disguised as police officers and shot her husband dead in front of her son. She got her son back, but the murder of her husband sparked a war with her husband's brother, Paco. But at the height of her power in the underworld, for the boss, it was just a not worth worrying about problem. But now, faced with her brutality and arrogance, those who had previously worked side by side with her gradually turned their backs to support Paco. And then karma began to appear for the boss Griselda. In 1984, Jamie, nephew of Alberto Bravo, the boss's second husband, secretly ambushed her at shopping malls, waiting for the opportunity to assassinate her, to avenge his uncle. Despite the bull-headed horse-faced people who wanted to kill her, the boss continued to escalate the tension when she ordered the murder of a drug dealer, Marta Saldarriaga Ochoa. When Griselda Blanco wanted to avoid paying the $1.8 million debt to this dealer, Ochoa's body was discovered dumped in a canal not long after. Luckily for the boss, Ochoa's father decided not to demand blood debt for his son. Instead, he proposed a truce, ending the killing, which was partly due to the influence of a noble family who was the founding father of the Medellin cartel, on par with Pablo Escobar. However, the boss lady from then on became the focus of not only the enemy but also the DEA, the U.S. anti-drug force. By 1984, seeing that the situation seemed tense, she had to flee to California to avoid the sun, hiding from the DEA's investigation and the revenge of her nephew Jamie. By November 1984, Jamie was arrested, because if this person successfully assassinated the boss lady, the DEA's investigation would be in vain. When Jamie was eliminated, the DEA went all out to investigate Griselda Blanco. Finally, the boss lady was arrested in 1985 at the age of 42 and sentenced to nearly 20 years in prison for drug trafficking. The investigation into Griselda Blanco was not limited to drug trafficking, but more than that, the murders and assassinations she had committed. However, this boss continued to start a new chapter of her life in prison. When the news of her arrest was reported by the media, Charles Cosby, a drug lord in Oakland, decided to contact Griselda. Cosby was fascinated by the boss. After many exchanges, the two met at Dublin prison. Almost immediately, the pair became lovers with the help of the prison guards who swallowed their money. If this love money deal was successful, Cosby would inherit most of the boss's drug empire. While the boss was enjoying life with her new lover behind bars, her enemies could do nothing, so they turned to target her son, Osvaldo. In 1992, Osvaldo was shot by one of Pablo Escobar's men and later died in the hospital. But the real retribution for Griselda came in 1994, when her former trusted underling Ayala decided to testify about her former boss's crimes. This clearly put the boss in a state of crisis, because Ayala's testimony was enough to get her sentenced to multiple electric chair sentences. Her lover in prison, Cosby, later said that the boss had come up with a plan. Griselda wrote a note to Cosby, on which she wrote, JFK 5M New York. The note contained only a few words, but it contained a daring and crazy plot by the boss to exchange for her own freedom. She told Cosby to kidnap John F. Kennedy Jr., son of the late President Kennedy, in New York and use him as a hostage in exchange for her freedom. The kidnappers would receive a reward of $5 million. According to some records, the kidnappers had prepared to carry out this earth-shattering operation. They tried to surround Kennedy while he was out walking his dog, but an NYPD squad car passed by and scared them off. Given her nature, Griselda was certainly bold enough to come up with such a plan. However, when the kidnapping failed, time was running out for the boss. If Ayala testified, she would be sentenced to death. But at this moment, a sex scandal between Ayala and secretaries at the Miami District Attorney's Office was discovered, which sank everything. Ayala was disqualified from testifying because her testimony was questioned about the objectivity of her testimony. Griselda Blanco was lucky to escape the death penalty. Instead, she accepted an immunity deal to be released in 2004 and deported to Colombia. Although she was lucky to escape the death penalty in the US, the boss created too much karma. On September 3, 2012, Griselda Blanco, then 69 years old, was shot twice in the head outside a butcher shop in Medellin. The boss was assassinated by the same method she had invented many years ago, being shot dead by assassins on motorbikes. Was the assassination of Boss Griselda carried out by the henchmen of drug lord Pablo Escobar to settle the grudge, or did someone else do it? That question remains difficult to answer, because Griselda Blanco had too many enemies, too difficult to identify. But whoever carried out the assassination, in the end, Griselda and Pablo Escobar both rest in the same cemetery.
Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. And as always, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next one.